In this episode, I talk with Cory Miller of iThemes about WordPress, creating community with relationships, and how iThemes does online training.
Welcome to the Online Course Coach Podcast, brought to you by TrueFocusMedia.com. Whether you're a beginner or expert, this is the podcast for the latest in online course creation tips, news, interviews, and ideas. And here's your coach, Jeff Long.
Welcome back to another episode of the Online Course Coach Podcast. Again, my name is Jeff Long, and thanks for coming back to another episode. And we've had some really fun guests the last few episodes, and we'll continue to have some really good guests here on this show as well as in the future. So keep coming back for more. But today I'm really excited because we're talking with Cory Miller of iThemes. And you know, it's interesting. I've had different people on from a variety of learning platforms, learning management system platforms. So some of them might be an all-contained, all-in-one solution. Some might be a WordPress plugin or something like that. But today, Cory and I talk about a variety of aspects as far as creating online courses. And he is a WordPress proponent. So I just want to say up front, he loves WordPress, and so do I. But we both know that WordPress is not the only solution, and we talk about some of the benefits in this episode. We also get into talking about, creating community and how to build relationships. And it's really interesting. I just got an email from Eric E. So I won't give away your last name there, Eric, because I didn't warn you that I was going to be talking about this. It just so happened to fit. And he asks about community and how to build an authentic community with your audience. And this is one of the most foundational aspects of the success of your course. You can do Facebook ads and you can do other marketing strategies that will build your audience, will grow your email list, and that's good. I think those are important. However, I think by creating a community, the best way to do that is by serving people without selling, answering questions, and building your platform. So this could mean starting a podcast or starting a private Facebook group, getting involved in local meetup groups, or writing guest blog posts. And it usually doesn't happen quickly, but the deeper relationships that you build, the more long-term success that you'll have. So maybe it's going to a trade show that's in your industry. Maybe it's reaching out and asking 10 or 20 of your audience how you can best serve them and what they might find important, even before you try to sell them your course. And so you can do a lot of different things. In fact, I did a recent podcast called 5 Strategies to Grow Your Online Audience. 5 Strategies to Grow Your Audience for Your Online Course. And so if you go to the website and just do a search for audience or strategies or whatever, you can find that pretty quickly. And then I also highly recommend the book by Michael Hyatt called Platform: How to Get Noticed in a Noisy World. And I've gotten the opportunity to meet Michael personally. He's spoken at my small mastermind group, and he is just the most authentic person in person as he seems online. And so that book Platform, it's a few years old, but the principles apply. How do you build your platform? How do you get noticed in a noisy world? Because like I said, building that community is a vital part of your long-term strategy. The more people you know, the more people that know you will help you build that business of yours that you're trying to build. And it's interesting. I've been amazed since I've been in business since 2003. I've been in business for myself. I've been amazed at the times where it's the relationship that sells my service. Yes, I have a quality product. I do great work. I am trustworthy, honest, and I could keep going on. But they know me. They know that I'm trustworthy, that I'm going to get the job done no matter what. And they're almost hiring, me and my company more than just the services we provide. And a lot of that comes back to community. So Eric and anybody in the audience, yes, definitely think about that community aspect when you're thinking about your courses. And that could be built out in your course through a private Facebook group, through forums, through weekly or monthly, or having 2 or 3 after the course purchase webinars. And so there are many ways to build your community once your course is made, as you're building your students' community. So trying to help them succeed. And the good thing is, especially within a course, you don't always have to be the one up front or leading that group. So if it's a private Facebook group, maybe at first, if it's a small group, you want to be in there a lot. But as time goes on, you should let your audience, let the students take ownership of that group, because they will feel a sense of community, like they are helping build that group, improve each other, help each other, and you can be in there to manage and to take some of the questions, but don't feel like you have to be in there all the time. I'm in some very successful groups online, especially private Facebook groups, and the key person or key people aren't the ones interacting the most. And it's still a very valuable group, very valuable community. The second question Eric asks is if there's a webinar software that allows you to embed a webinar into your website, where you can, obviously have the live or replay webinar, have the chats and all that. One of the features that Webinar Jams offers is this very thing. And so check out Webinar Jam. I believe it's just webinarjam.com. And there might be other webinar software that does this, but Webinar Jam is one of the kind of the leaders up there that I would take a look at. I'm a big fan of Zoom, and you can find that at zoom.us, but I don't believe they have that ability to embed it in your site. You can embed the replay on your website, but the live webinar is through kind of an applet or a web app. So I don't believe that that's possible. But check out Webinar Jam. And then if you have other webinar software recommendations, please let me know. So shoot me an email, jeff@onlinecoursecoach.com, or send me a tweet, Jeff_Long, which I've loved interacting with many of you through Twitter. I know Raymond and I have connected through Twitter quite a bit. Raymond Modulin has been on the podcast, and we interact a decent amount there on Twitter, so I always appreciate that. All right, well, let's jump into the interview here, and as you'll notice, Cory is one of the most authentic people there is. I noticed that quickly as I began to talk to him on this podcast, and it was a pleasure talking with him and just hearing his heart for his business, and that it's not all about more sales and more numbers. It is about building that authentic community and authentic relationships. And it is easy to forget that, as we're sales driven, as we're trying to teach people and impact lives and help people, sometimes we do lose track of that authenticity, that community in those relationships. So make sure that you don't lose track of that. And then he does mention some of their products and services, and their plugins at iThemes are some of the top and most highly recommended plugins that I recommend. And so whenever we're creating or developing a client website, Backup Buddy is something I always recommend. So if you are running a WordPress site, to me, Backup Buddy is the best backup solution. And if you don't have a backup solution, go out today, get Backup Buddy. You won't be disappointed. And then their security plugin is one of my favorites too. And then if you're managing client websites like we are, their sync plugin is very helpful. Now, if you want to learn more about iThemes and their plugins and their themes and their services, you can go to onlinecoursecoach.com/iThemes and check that out. Now, that is an affiliate link, and so you'll be taken directly to their page there at onlinecoursecoach.com/iThemes. But if you've been a listener to the show, in fact, I've been trying to think, this might be one of my first affiliate kind of promotions. I don't really do this much, but it might help pay some of the bandwidth for the podcast. So check it out at onlinecoursecoach.com/iThemes. Well, let's jump right into the interview with Cory Miller. Well, Cory, thank you so much for being on the Online Course Coach podcast today.
Thanks, Jeff, for having me.
So, Cory, what was the catalyst for starting iThemes in 2008?
Yeah, that's a fun story. It goes back about 10 and a half years ago. had started a blog around the career field I was in at the time, and started on Blogger, and then found this platform called WordPress. Transitioned everything over to WordPress and thought, I want to learn HTML, CSS. I want to build my first theme. And through doing that first theme, I got an influx of people coming back saying, "Hey, would you like to? Can I hire you to build my website or blog?" And I was like, I'm learning this, and it was just this remarkable phenomenon. But that launched my freelance web design career. Doing that for about a year, I realized it wasn't sustainable. I was really, really lame front end developer and really, really lame designer, and probably couldn't make a full time living doing that. And around the same time, back then in WordPress 10 years ago, the theme market was a totally different place. And so I'd built my organizations that I was working with, their website on WordPress, did things like drop down menus at the time. Now, this feels ancient, like assumed thing, but it wasn't something that was there with WordPress themes at the time. And so a couple of people had my close friend, Brian Gardner, who now runs Studio Press, and I were collaborating friendship wise, building our freelance businesses. And he started doing themes. I started dabbling in some premium themes, and met my partners in late 2007, came up with the idea with iThemes, and rolled out in January 2008.
I love it.
So really the catalyst was scratching my own need. When I would look for a template to design our organization, the job I was at, to design that organization's website, it didn't have some simple things that I thought would be good. And so we built, that was really the catalyst, is saying, I think there's a need out there for more people than just me. One of my early inspirations was Template Monster. I had bought a couple of Template Monster themes. They were just HTML, cut up of Photoshop stuff back in the day. And that was kind of an inspiration too for iThemes.
Yeah, that's good. And I love how you said you found a problem and you filled that gap with your own solution. You didn't wait for anybody else. You just dove right in. And I also like that you said, you kind of realized maybe some of your limitations back then of whether it's front end or coding or whatever. And it almost sounds like more the business side and the entrepreneurship side was more where you were kind of aligning yourself to. Is that correct?
Absolutely. The passion and interest was web design, but really the long-term, thing that I wanted to do is run a sustainable business for the long term.
Yeah.
And so we just turned 9 years old, going on our 10th year of business here pretty soon. A decade in technology is pretty remarkable, but just really that principle you just restated, find a need and fill it, has been the catalyst, the key to our success at iThemes over the last 9 years. We started with WordPress themes. Now we drive about 2% of our revenue from themes. Everything else is WordPress plugins and software. And so that's been a shift, and we're going through another shift just in the last 2 years that we're still in the process of going over to more software as a service type model. And so 3 big shifts in 9 years has been really interesting for us and fun.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, as the audience knows, I'm a big fan of your plugins and always recommend Backup Buddy and Security and Sync and the whole suite. In fact, as a side note, I was just talking with a client this morning and looking at their iThemes security stats and how many times we've blocked brute force attacks and all those other things. So that was fun to have those stats in front of me.
Fantastic.
So I appreciate your amazing plugins as well as your themes.
Well, thank you for using our tool set. That's our key tools. You just laid out right there, and using them in that kind of way is really exciting and affirming for what we're doing.
Yeah, well, good. Now, how has online training and online courses grown within your company, both internally and externally?
That's a great question. It's a nuanced question. We started our training division in 2009, and to really for the last 8 years or so has been 1 hour type online webinars, not the 5-minute type thing you might get at lynda.com or some other pre-recorded place. We do all of our training live in a webinar screen sharing format where people can ask questions. It's been fun. It's been a fun ride, and I'll tell you, it hasn't made the most money for us out of all of our products over the years, but it is so embedded in the DNA of who we are. We have a value: learn and grow, teach and share. So from our team to our community, that's our emphasis and why we love training. It's a part of our marketing, huge part of our marketing. We know if we educate a user, help them do something, make their life better, that they'll be more loyal and committed and interested in all the products that we do. In the last 3 months, we've gone through a whole overhaul of everything we do with our training division, which is very timely for this podcast interview. We looked at 7 years of data and said, okay, and I'm probably not doing my math right. I guess it's 8 years of data. I said, what are people interested in? We did some surveys to the community. We retooled that to be less emphasis on one-off, 1 hour webinars and more lean to the summit type events. So 2-day, 3-day, 3 hours a piece kind of event where someone can block off their calendar, come to a live event. Now, the other part of the training is we've always offered the replays and recordings and downloads through that time. So people that can't do it, whether it's in their time zone or get their schedule to work, we've had those available to people for forever. But this emphasis is on a big summit event and trying to get a paid ticket price into that. And that's what we're exploring now. We've done that in the past and had some success. Now we're trying to double down on that particular aspect of how we do online training.
Interesting. Yeah, and I've taken quite a few of those courses, both live with the webinars as well as the replays, and they're obviously fantastic. And so that's been a fun experience throughout the history of kind of keeping track with you and your company. So I appreciate that. Now, do you do any internal video-based courses or online training for your team?
We really don't. We for more of the green rookies that we might bring onto the team, we like to have them in office because we have an office here in Oklahoma City with about 10 people that come into it on a regular basis, and the rest of our team of 22 are remote based. But if someone's pretty green, we'll come in to do that elbow to elbow, look over my shoulder, watch my screen, let's talk around the water cooler, kind of mentoring and coaching. We haven't done a lot of that internally, the online training stuff. Now, you know how developers are. They'll go out and find a tutorial for a problem that answers their specific need. But overall, we haven't done that. We've sent people to conferences and things like that. But internally, it is taking the experts, the veterans in our team, pairing them with someone that's younger and greener, perhaps younger, by the way. It's not always the case, but greener. Sure. And saying, let's teach you the skill sets and help you move along in your progress in your career here at iThemes.
Yeah. Now, when you were doing, I know you're in a transition period, but when you were doing these online webinars and training, I know you had different instructors at different times based on their expertise. Was there a process or a template that they followed to create the trainings, or was it more of, hey, we're just going to walk you through from A to Z? Was there a process along that lines?
It's more been, okay, this is an area of interest for our community, and how do we find an expert in that field? That can also, by the way, be an expert and then teaching that expertise are two different skills, as you well know. Finding someone that's an expert and can teach and dumb things down, I say, for my level, like take a complex thing and put it to me where I can understand it. And, being in WordPress in our industry for 10 years, we've got some very rich relationships with people. And so the focus was more on finding unique voices and perspectives with deep knowledge in certain areas and exposing them to the community. Now, we've had, up until January, for that 8 years, we've had a full-time instructor that has taught the bulk of that training. Now, he has since moved on doing new endeavors, and we're very, very happy for Benjamin. But now we're seeking to put more diverse voices into the community and saying, okay, just because this developer or this designer does it this way doesn't mean there's not a better or more appropriate way for you to do it, and try to expose to some diverse skill sets and perspectives.
Yeah, no, that's good. I love it. So to the audience here, and some of our audiences have, huge courses with massive followings. Some are just starting out. What do you think why do you think building your online course with WordPress specifically as a platform is a good idea? What's the big deal with WordPress?
It is still, although it's got a little bit more complicated on the dashboard side of how you administer, publish posts and things like that, it's still the most easy to use platform on the planet with the most rich base of extensions to do anything you want in WordPress. You might, through our e-commerce platform that we do a lot of membership sites, we've seen that there are 100,000 varieties of how you do memberships and how you do training and how you sell those. It's really interesting to see all those different patterns. But with WordPress, no matter what you want, okay, I want to give away a free T-shirt, but I want to sell a membership to your pre-recorded content or whatever it may be. You can do that easily and with WordPress and find a plugin that does exactly what you're wanting to do. So easiest to use platform with the most diverse set of software already built and likely most of it free at your fingertips. And so you find good hosting with like I'm sure you recommend hosting.
Hmm.
We've got a couple really good friends in the business. Find good hosting, put WordPress, find the plugin that does what you need and the theme that you want that's appropriate. There are specific things for niches down to, I don't know, doggy daycares
Right.
that are so appropriate. So all those tools are there and either free or cheap, very, very affordable to do and get your business up and your training program up and running in days.
Yeah, no, and I love it, and that's always been this debate within the online course community is, and I think it's a good debate, a healthy debate. There's the WordPress side, which gives you the freedom, the flexibility, the ownership, all that stuff of your course, so you can customize it how you want it, and you own it. And then there's the other side that are pre-made learning management systems where you either
Mm-hmm.
pay a monthly fee or percentage of sales. And I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I mean, I come from a more of a design development background, so I lean towards, hey, I want to build it how we want to build it.
Mm-hmm.
But for people that's not possible, maybe WordPress isn't the best. I lean towards it, of course, and I'm guessing you do too. But yeah, there's so many good reasons to use WordPress.
I fully agree with you. It's not for everybody. If you want freedom and control, then WordPress is a great platform for that. If you just want ease of use and you're willing, in some of those online management systems, softwares, to pay a percentage for someone else to deal with all that stuff and just give you an easy to use, platform, then, to each his own. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And there's such good software out there today that does online software, but freedom and control growth is kind of one of your main points, and I highly recommend WordPress, of course.
Yeah. Now we talked a little bit ago about your plugins, specifically Backup Buddy, Security, and even iThemes Sync. But kind of give me the elevator pitch on specifically Backup Buddy and Security. What are they and what do they accomplish?
So, particularly for your audience, Jeff, and I mean, you know this very well, so I'm
Sure.
telling it to the choir here, but you spend hours and hours and days mapping out your content, recording your content, exporting your content, cutting it up, putting bumpers on, uploading it to some software's Vimeo or YouTube or whatever Wistia, whatever platform you do. You spend hours and hours and do that. So you've got all this content on a site. You spent more hours working on your site. You want to protect that content. You want to make sure that in the event of a server crash, which does happen,
Hmm.
has happened to us, by the way, in the
Which is why
event
you
of a
built Backup Buddy. Is that correct? Am I remembering the
absolutely, that's
story
our
correct?
story.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. The best product we've had to date came out of our own pain and suffering.
Sorry to bring that back up, but
No, no, it's a great story because we built it out of our own need.
Mhm.
So the story, real quick, is for Backup Buddy, we had hosted client sites on a server, and literally the hard drive melted down, and we didn't have backup. So all that hours and time and money and energy that we spent building all those sites for clients and getting paid for it suddenly disappeared overnight. Didn't have backups. That's the problem Backup Buddy solves and why it's so vital. You've got all this rich content. Hopefully, you do have those big, large video files stored elsewhere too.
Mhm.
But when it comes to your whole site, if it gets hacked, if a server crash happens, if you make a mistake or someone on your team makes a mistake in your site, crashes your site, you can easily restore that with Backup Buddy. So it's protection. It's insurance for your site. iThemes Security goes another step kind of adjacent to backups, and that is WordPress as secure, absolutely secure, great platform. There's thousands of people every day trying to find potential exploits and patch those as quickly as possible. And by the way, all software has bugs.
Mhm.
All software has holes. We know that from the federal government. um, and all the stories you see in the news about people getting hacked. That's a fact of life. Web security is a fact of life. iThemes security helps make that easier for you to lock down your site in very uh, easy, practical ways. Two-factor authentication. If you don't have two-factor authentication on your email, on your sites, all your valuable things, you're exposing yourself to potential security breaches. The other is, as good as WordPress is and the plugins and themes that are associated with it, they have regular updates, and some of those updates are security patches. And so if you're not keeping your WordPress site themes and plugins up to date, you're likely also exposing your site to potential automated security breaches from people that have kind of malicious intent. We've been a victim of that ourselves, by the way.
Hmm.
So we know how important that is. So that's what iThemes Security and iThemes Security Pro does. And then sync, like you said, is if you're a person that manages multiple websites, you're an internet entrepreneur, you have 3 different offerings for online courses, or you just manage, 10 sites for other people and you have your own. iThemes Sync makes that easy to do in one dashboard. You don't have to go to each site to make updates. You can pull reports from those sites into to share if you have clients or for yourself, important like from Analytics, Google Search Console, what plugins, themes, WordPress core updates were made, security things to get all that information from automated reports. It's ideally suited for freelancers and agencies building sites for other people, but internet entrepreneurs is a key part of that. Managing all that stuff yourself, you need an easy way to do that and save time. That's what iThemes Sync does.
Yeah, well, good. Yeah, and I have all 3, like I said, and love them. And with Backup Buddy, you kind of alluded to this, but the ability to store a backup away from or off your own
Yes.
hosting and server is key because, of course, if your server goes down with your backup, well, you're
Yeah.
sunk. And so I love the fact that you can store it on Amazon S3 or Google Drive and many other offsite locations, which is fantastic.
And then Backup Buddy also has Stash Live, so you can do
Mhm.
the automated, and we put it in a remote location off your server, like you said, which is great. Best practice. So,
Yeah.
the idea of your house burns down and all your documents, you want to safe, but ideally you'd have most important documents locked in a safe deposit box potentially.
Right.
And it's kind of how we think about Backup Buddy for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I'm sure I've said this to the audience, but whenever I speak at different conferences or events, and people ask me, "Hey, what are your favorite WordPress plugins?" Generally, my first one is Backup Buddy because you're going to waste so much time if your website goes down and gets hacked. I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer. So, anyway, I could sing the praises of Backup Buddy and your other plugins for a long time, but we'll keep moving on. So I want to get to more of the strategy and more on the business side because I know that's your strength and your passion. So what would you tell somebody that maybe does have some expertise in a given field, but maybe they don't know how, they want to train an audience, they want to get their course up and make an impact, but they're either scared or unsure, or they don't know how to put those pieces together. What would you say as an entrepreneur and business owner to encourage them?
Excellent question, Jeff. And I'm so glad. I love those type of questions. It hits to obstacles and roadblocks that prevent you from success. And I love blowing up obstacles and roadblocks. The first is there's a tutorial for anything you want to do. So from the building side, you Google the question you have, the roadblock you have, and you're likely going to find a tutorial to walk you through how to do that. The other side, I think, speaks to a more emotional thing of I have expertise, but I'm not confident in sharing that. I'll take my wife, for instance. She's been in political fundraising for 10 years now. And over the summer, you know, it's so different. And maybe this parallels with some of your audience and you, but she's spent 10 years one-on-one with candidates, teaching them the process for how to raise money for their political campaign.
Hmm.
That's a verbal emotional thing between 2 people that she was so good at doing. I've sat at the table while she's talked to clients and been so impressed. And then we started talking about doing an online course, and there was a transition period. she's so used to doing it all verbal. For the first time, she started writing it all down. It's deep within her. All the truths, all the steps are all there, the principles deep within her. Putting that to paper was such a great experience for her. Now, she had her stops and starts and all that kind of stuff. But the first was she wrote it out. She wrote an outline, and then she started fleshing out the outline. The second is she looked, we said, what if you took that and put it into a presentation you would do for 50 of your potential clients, political candidates? And I think those two thought processes helped her so much to really flesh out the principles, the steps that she had been doing kind of on automatic pilot in a format she could see and own and feel good about. That was one step of the confidence thing. The other is I go back to my personal experience blogging. 10 years ago, when I started that blog, I was a communications director for churches
Mm.
for 6 years. Now, when I started my blog, I thought I want to share what I've learned in 6 years working with churches and communications, branding, PR, and all that stuff that goes along with it. A lot of churches couldn't hire someone like me to do that full time. I wanted to open source my experience. When I started my first blog post, that was the most scary thing because no one likes criticism. No one just
Sure.
wakes up in the morning going, I cannot wait to be criticized, to have my life laid bare and exposed and be potentially embarrassed by it all. Blogging was the best way for me to take a first step because I pushed publish scared, even though the only people that were going to read it were my mom, you know, for the first, couple of months.
Hmm.
I poured out and through blog post by blog post, I built my confidence in who I was. So then there was people in my field who were the rock stars. They were the experts. They were the people everybody knew. And it was funny. 6 months of doing that consistently every single day. I was crazy. I did 2, 3 times a day. When an
Wow.
idea would hit me, I'd just blog it. Now, this was a different day about 10 years ago, but every single day I think is a good practice. Chris Lemma is a great example of that.
Hmm.
You're familiar with Chris
Oh
Lemma.
yeah. Oh yeah.
He blogged consistently for about 3, 4 years every single day and built an enormous audience. Now, part of that is building a confidence. So these people that were rock stars in my field started emailing me and saying, "Man, you're doing great work." And I was like, "No, no, I'm just the amateur. You're the pro." And it was this remarkable confidence building experience for me. That was the first step. And also, it was a way to rehearse the content I had inside me and maybe said to a person just like my wife, Lindsay, talking to her clients. And I hadn't put that down in written form. And I was able to crystallize my thoughts and ideas, my best practices, my tips into an easy to read format where I got into a rhythm. It's just like running or exercising. You do it every single day, you get better and better at it. You try to learn how someone else does it and add that to your skill set to make sure you're improving every single day. Through that experience, I'm telling you, I just built an incredible amount of confidence that has been a wave of momentum for me into everything I'm doing 9 years, 10 years later here. And so just like my first time I got up to do public speaking, my first podcast interview, I was nervous. Now, anybody that says they're not nervous, I perhaps might question their passion and care for what they're doing.
Hmm.
But it just becomes easier where, I knew the topics we're going to talk about. There's something that are near and dear to my heart. I feel like I'm an expert in a lot of these things. And after practice makes perfect, but practice builds confidence. Then I can get on podcast interviews like this. And I think so. Those are my kind of riffing thoughts about how to build confidence in what you're doing and the structure to refine, crystallize your thoughts.
Well, and that's so good because, like you said, when you first started, I mean, yeah, you didn't have an audience, but you kept going. You did it before you had the audience and you built that audience. And so a lot of times it is just getting those first few steps, getting that momentum and that confidence, like you said, is key. It's key.
Everything we've done here has been built on the principle of building an audience.
Mm.
You might, a financial consultant or CPA might try to do a valuation of our business. It's hard to determine, but it's the most valuable part is the people that know our brand, the audience and platform we're talking about here. You build an audience, and I say it like this, but I think people understand my heart here. But our goal is to build a cult
Hmm.
around the things that we're doing. So you as a customer, Jeff, I want you to follow what we're doing. I want us to lead in the areas that we provide products for so that you don't have to worry about that. And also, if I build and educate, and this is the key part why we love training in our company and community, if I help you take one, two, three steps further, if I'm shepherding, looking out for you, guiding you, leading you, answering your problems, being a problem solver, then when we launch the next product, my hope is Jeff will say, I'm in.
Hmm.
And I think, as far as training goes, when you have this simple ability to help someone overcome a problem, overcome an obstacle, you become the hero. And I think people will follow that and you keep giving them good things to help make their life better, solve their problems for them. You understand their needs, their goals, their hopes, their dreams. We've got a program, kind of a theme called WP Prosper. And the idea is we do all these tools, but we want the core of our audience, freelancers and agencies, to make money off of our products.
Mm-hmm.
And we did that very strategically. If they make money with our products, they don't worry about renewing the subscriptions they have every year. And at least that's the goal, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
Uh, but
absolutely.
I believe if you build a following, helping people um, with their issues, challenges, and you understand the goal they're going for, then those people will follow you everywhere. Even if
Mm.
we decide one day WordPress isn't here, we need to go to this. I want the bulk of our community to go wherever you lead, I'll follow because
Yeah.
we're taking care of those people.
Well, and I want to say a couple things. First of all, I've been involved in the WordPress community for, man, probably about as long as you have, I'm guessing. And I've, bought different plugins and themes and worked with different, development companies and whatnot. But I can say for a fact that you guys are probably the best at that community aspect. Or, when I get your emails or correspondence, it feels different. And I don't know exactly what that means when I say that, but it feels different than when I get an email from maybe a competitor, where it just feels more like I'm a number, or, here's this or that. And so you guys are doing a really good job at that. So how would you talk to our audience that, they do have, whether it's 100 students in their course or 10,000 students in their course, what are some strategies that they could implement that you've done in your business to make those happy customers and relationships?
Well, I believe if leadership had a one word definition, it'd be called care. That's
Mm,
it.
that's
Leadership
good.
is caring. And as a business owner, providing services or products, training to customers, caring, if that's in your DNA and values, it's going to be shown through everything you do. And that's so great affirmation. I appreciate that encouragement, Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
That reaffirms that what we're doing is we truly care.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you care and you lead, kind of that role of a shepherd makes sure that the sheep are fed, taken care of, and
Mm-hmm.
protected. They'll go where you lead them because they trust you. So this all started about 8 years ago. We're doing hard work, working at what we're doing, and realized people were saying, "What's going on at iThemes?" They didn't see us in our office working hard every single day.
Hmm.
We switched the component, and that's what you're feeling and you're reflecting here is we changed that day to say we're working hard for these people. We need to tell them what we're doing. We need to get
Mm.
out there. Part of that was our training stuff. Part of that was just doing a first webinar. And by the way, when we talked about marketing, we talked about getting started in training. I'd highly suggest one of the things you add as a possible idea to explore is to do a one-off webinar and the topic you want to expand into a full-on course.
Mm.
It gets you rehearsing that. You're helping people. It's also a preview, get people to hear your voice and your passion and your expertise, and builds that audience. But as far as specifically trying to answer your question, number one marketing strategy, I would say that you do from day one, start today if you haven't. If you already have it, that's awesome. Email marketing.
Mm. Good.
Start building an email list. And the best emails that we send to the people, we've got hundreds of thousands of people now on our email list that have opted in, double opt in, all that stuff. We're not spamming people. The best emails come as letters from me
Mm.
talking to one person. The best blog posts
Wow.
I've written, the best emails we do are when you open up your Gmail or whatever client you use and think about one person that symbolizes the key client you're trying to reach and solve problems for, and start writing the email as you would sell, educate to that person on a one-on-one email. Those have been the best things we do after building an email list. Find some part of your training that you can offer for free gives them enough context. It pre-sells them, by the way, into the bigger course too.
Mm.
And you want to provide value, not just be sales pitchy. Give that as a free incentive to sign up to your email list, and then start regularly, even if you have 50 people talking to that list. It will multiply. If you do it, if you care, thinking about the customer, trying to get in their shoes, solve problems for them as the expert, you're going to build a massive audience. I know that from the last 10 years of my life. Every single thing we've done, we've built a community in form of an email list so that we can contact them and say, here's the good stuff we're doing for you, and here's why it should matter to you. So email marketing is the biggest thing. I know social networking is kind of the hot rage, always Facebook, Twitter, whatever it is, LinkedIn. But still, the bulk of our customers, the bulk of the universe right now still relies on email.
Yeah.
And so this is how this podcast interview got.
Mhm.
You responded to an email. You said, hey, could you see if Cory would respond to me? It's like, yes. That's another thing I'll tell you, being responsive to emails. So you send an email out, and if you do it, dear Jeff, we just rolled out this new thing, and here's why it matters to you. Here's why we're trying to make your life awesome. You'll get people that will actually reply to the email, which is, I think, what you did, Jeff.
Mhm. Yep.
Reply to that email.
Yep.
And it got back to me. Being responsive in any venue, whether it's social networking, comments on your blog, um, uh, live chats, whatever you do, being responsive, helpful, I think builds that cult, that community, that audience of people that just love, trust you, and are going to go wherever you go.
And that's such a better and more sustainable business. I know a lot of times different people in the online course industry are more on the internet marketing side than the relationship building side. And to me, the relationships is what's going to grow and impact more people than just trying to get numbers in. And you get numbers in on one end and numbers are leaving on the other end, and that's a hard business strategy to go with versus building relationships.
I'm only talking to you today. You only care to have me on this interview because of my deep relationships in the past with people,
Mm-hmm.
my customers, my team, my partners, my friends in the business. We have built our business on relationships, people that care about us and we care about them. That I'm not seeking just to take and take and take. I want to give and give and give. If you're a giver, building relationships, just as you said, that is the key to success.
Yeah.
If you're just a user and a taker, people will quickly recognize that because you'll be talking to an echo chamber.
That's good. That's good. No, it's interesting. You mentioned in several different of your responses, and you mentioned this in different ways, that really sales is just filling a need. And I was at a conference last year in California. It was a very small kind of a mastermind group type of conference, about 30 of us in there. And throughout 2 days, I just kind of noticed almost everybody, maybe even everybody, raised their hand and said something to the effect of, I'm in this business and I hate sales, but I want to blah, blah, blah. Or I hate selling, and it's so interesting to me because I don't ever view sales as a negative thing, a difficult thing. It's really, how can I serve my audience? How can I help them meet their goals? And I've heard you say that exact same thing.
Yeah, sales and marketing are those icky, scary topics. Oh, I have to go do sales. Oh man, I'm scared about that. I don't want to do cold calls. I don't want to do this. But if you look at it like the lens of relationships, as you just stated, it's so much transformational internally, emotionally, energizing wise. When you think about it as relationships for the sole goal of making someone's life awesome. And then it transforms it. When we've talked about sales and marketing internally, and software developers have the worst mindset about sales and marketing. They think it's icky. They've seen all the travesty of it. And I said, hold on. Do you believe in what you're building? Yes. Do you believe passionately what you're building, what you spend your work life doing helps make somebody's life better? Yes. Then we have a mandate to tell someone about that, how it can make their life better. And in that frame of mind, it transforms the conversation. And that goes back to knowing and believing what you do. I forgot to mention this earlier. I've got a practical example. We were talking about building for a need and serving people and things like that. So the first year we started iThemes, it was themes. And in our support forum, there was a regular occurring thing that it was just after 8 months of just working that sales and support system, I realized we needed to educate and build our customer, build them up.
Mm.
They didn't have, they didn't know how to um, do web design. They didn't know HTML and CSS. And that's how our training got started, Jeff,
Mm.
is out of a need that we recognized from the forum. Okay, we would respond and say, here's how you can change your header, and here's how you can tweak the CSS to that color you're wanting. But we realized if we raise the customer up by training, by sharing, that was one of our first courses was HTML and CSS web design.
Mm.
How to do those things. Number one, we help the customer. We move them along in their journey. Number two, we solve support issues. If we're
Sure.
sharing, then we have less support. So it's like a
Yeah.
win-win. And so that's how our training got started, by the way. I wanted to mention that.
Yeah. No, and I love that. That win-win aspect. I mean, it's a win for the audience, of course, but it's a win-win for you guys, meaning it's less support. If
Yes.
you can empower them, then they are less frustrated and in the forums. So that's really good. Where do you see online courses going in the future? Do you see any trends or anything that you've noticed in your speaking and travels and being in the industry?
Absolutely. It's going to even more explode.
Mm.
When you talk about in 20 years ago, I went to a university to try to learn journalism. That was my degree focus at the time. And now, so I had to move myself and everything I had, what little I had, to a dorm room at a university to get the skill sets, things I needed. Now it's readily available 24/7, 365
Mhm.
through online training. I think it's going to explode. We're going to see, I've got two kids, 4 and 2, and we start thinking about their future after their typical grade school, high school type educations. What happens after that? And I go, I don't know what the university system is going to look like in
Mm.
16 years when my first child, uh, gets to that age. My thinking and where I see the future going is that it'll be readily available, all of the things that they would ever want online in a manner of teaching that is unparalleled in history.
Mm.
The ability to use metrics to statistical analysis to say this person dropped off at 3 minute mark, to be able to do truly interactive training for needs based at every learning style and level is just going to continue. I think it's been exploding. It's going to continue to explode. You see lynda.com getting bought by LinkedIn for a lot of money.
Mhm.
Pluralsight is another huge company doing really, really good stuff on that level. And then there's thousands and thousands of people saying, I have content. I might be in Lone Grove, Oklahoma, which is a 3,000 person town, but I have access to an internet and a computer. And I can share my expertise with people in Korea.
Mhm.
So I think that's only there's going to be even steeper hockey puck as we start the technology gets better and better, faster and faster, more affordable too. When your child could potentially be homeschooled and then have classes readily available through iTunes or other manner to get training from Stanford
Right.
University is pretty unparalleled in the
Yeah.
history of mankind. And that's only, we are at such a critical, awesome, life-changing moment now that's continuing to just go up that curve of teaching the entire world to the ends of the earth.
Mm.
You're going to get broadband internet at some point to that last billion people, and then they get access to everything. Jeff
Mm.
Long's training, Cory Miller's training, whoever else is training at their fingertips. That's incredible. To date, the one that I feel like is perhaps the most effective general way to do online training is very short bursts,
Mm.
3 to 5 minute, no longer than 8 minutes. I've got a dear friend named Peace Patel who created a company in his house, literally doing DVDs back in the day. Sold his company called Digital Tutors, and he knows training. And to hear him say statistically, I mean, you can validate this as people's attention spans 3 to 8 minutes is about
Mm.
that max. Having that content, and here's the other reason we just know it from fact is that when you have a problem and you seek to Google it or whatever you're searching for it, you want a laser beam to fix that issue to answer that particular question. And it's something we've wanted to do for the longest time at iThemes training. The short 3 to 8 minute bursts collectively could be, 2 hours for a particular topic. But so someone doesn't have to go from can skip the 101 and go to the 501
Hmm.
series of stuff or answer a question. That's the thing I see to date being very, very hot. And
Yeah.
seeing some people just being able to do that with WordPress, with different platforms, in a matter of days is pretty uh, compelling for the future.
Yeah. Well, and by having short, like you said, 3 to 5 minute lessons, people, if they want to, can binge watch just like they do with Netflix. So if they
Yes.
get excited, they're like, "Wow, that was great! I just learned something. Maybe it was one thing. I want to learn the next one thing and the next one thing, and it adds up, and it creates momentum and excitement for the student."
Then I can take it on my mobile phone anywhere
Hmm.
I go.
Yeah.
Can have it off downloaded offline so I can look on it on the plane, watch it on the plane, wherever I'm at. The other part of this, besides mobile is a huge part of this, from iPads, but really truly to the smartphones. Android's got a much bigger base than iPhone, but extended past that is the machine learning and artificial intelligence stuff that
Mm.
is just now kind of getting some sparks, some fire underneath it. At some point, like I was saying, those interactive things, when you can do machine learning and say, did you know, pull out some cool stat based on machine intelligence that says people watch things at this is a sweet part spot for your audience, for the length, for the time of day, for the area of the country. Bring that kind of stuff. That's the exciting part I see with the internet as a whole and software as a whole, but particularly as it relates to training, where you're going to be able to leverage the processing power of an Amazon Web Services division,
Yeah.
with millions of computers to do this processing power that will eventually soon get faster than the human brain.
I love it. I love it. Well, I could talk to you for a good long time about that topic specifically. But last couple things is Cory, what's inspiring you lately?
And so I turned 40 last year.
Oh,
I don't
nice.
know how old you are, Jeff, but I turned 40, and that was
Approaching.
that.
I'm almost there. Knocking on
Okay.
the door.
Well, I got you. Ping me when you get closer. I've got experiences to share. This time of life where you spend, they've talked about it. You spend your 20s kind of figuring out where you're going to go in life, and your 30s you're building it. And in the past couple of years, kind of reaching this milestone where I've, everything I want to do as a kid, I've kind of can check off, and I'm
Hmm.
extremely grateful for all these things. But you kind of search for, okay, we've made money, we've done really, really, really awesome things for people, but really the meaning and purpose is the stage of life I'm in. So there's a book called The Power of Meaning by Emily Smith. Fantastic.
Hmm.
Um, Talking about there's 4 aspects of meaning: purpose, transcendence, storytelling, and the fourth, oh man, I blanked on it. I had it. But anyway, her book is incredible. It's got stories. It's a great Audible if you like listening to
Hmm.
books. Use Audible. But The Power of Meaning by Emily Smith has truly been the latest thing that's inspired me.
Hmm. And what in that, what's maybe one of your biggest takeaways as far as where you're going for the next 40 years?
You know, the aspect of when I think about the next 40 years, what I want to look back on is that I've had a tremendous amount of influence on a bunch of people,
Hmm.
that I've helped change their lives from my life, that I've used my time, talent, and treasure to make a difference in people's lives. I got a text message from a amazing young man who interned with us. He was a videographer, and this was 5, 6 years ago. And he's now working at Twitter.
Hmm. Wow.
And 2 Super Bowls ago, he was involved in it was the Radio Shack commercial that was kind of a throwback to the 80s. And I think about, and he sent me a text message, and it was just so timely. I just want to thank you for pouring into me, for believing in this young kid from Oklahoma who's now working at Twitter. And I was like, that's what I want to spend the next 40 years of my life intentionally doing every single day. Uh, that's giving back, paying forward. So raising good kids is the first start.
Hmm.
My 2
Yeah.
kiddos, 1, 2. But if I can live my life, and that's the meaning and purpose and value of what we're doing. We do some of that already with our nonprofit tech education for children. We do technology education for grade school kids, and now we're going to be teaching teachers how to teach computer science in middle school and high school in Oklahoma.
Hmm.
That's a ripple effect. I may never hear from one of those students that said, you know what, the spark came from that one class that was attached to you, but I know the influence, the power for doing those things are what will outlive me. And I'm thankful that it doesn't have to have my name attached to it. Just the feeling that I'll have of doing good work for the rest of my fellow humans.
That's good. Now, the last question, I think, is, it seems like you would rather be serving your audience, be helping, helping them get where they want to go, than really being out in front, kind of cheering and you getting all the attention. Is that a correct assessment of maybe you and your personality?
Absolutely. I'm kind of I have a hard time taking compliments myself now, and I always go, you know what? Backup Buddy wasn't even my idea. I did not build any of the code that goes with Backup Buddy. That's Dustin Bolton, that's Chris Jean, that's our team surrounding them that have done that for 6-7 years now. So it's really hard to do that. But I just love the impact you can have, even making a profit. There's a way to make money and meaning.
Yeah.
And I think if you do that with these principles of caring, of helping people learn and grow, make their life awesome, you can truly do that. And I feel like over the last 9 years, we've done that every year. And that's what drives me coming to work. It's not just thinking about security and backups and maintenance. That's not it. It is the bigger meaning of helping someone solve problems, making their life better. And I think that's what business is about, and why it's one of the best platforms. And training, entrepreneurship, doing training, I think is that on steroids, because you're actually seeing people make progress, be able to get new jobs, transition skill sets to some new career field, helping people solve a problem that does something cool, and you get to be a part of a big project kind of in a small aspect of that. I think that's incredibly meaningful and purposeful.
It's so good. It's so good. Well, Cory, you've inspired me here today to even serve more and better than I already have. And so I appreciate you coming on the podcast and not just talking about online courses, and that's important, but going deeper and talking about how to have that positive influence and impact that maybe, like you said, those ripples you might not even see that will be felt for hopefully generations to come. So thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
You bet. Thanks for letting me come on and riff.
I hope you enjoyed that interview as much as I did. I could have talked to Cory much, much longer. In fact, briefly there at the end, he mentioned some of the other initiatives they're doing with in-person training, with schools, with online training, with all these different aspects. And maybe we'll have him back on the show to talk about that. But I thought it was important to talk about WordPress as a whole, why it might be important to use for your learning management system. I thought, hearing his aspect on community and relationships was critical, and so the more we talked about that, in fact, we even talked about that more off the show as well. We talked about that a little bit more, which was really interesting to hear his perspective. So I just love that interview. Cory is a great guy. I've heard him speak at different WordCamps and different events, and knew I had to get him on, not just to talk about online courses and online training, but as a community builder and somebody that's so authentic. I thought that would be a really good interview. Well, don't forget, if you want to check out some of the plugins that they offer, like Backup Buddy, Security, and Sync, as well as their themes, go to onlinecoursecoach.com/iThemes to check that out. And we are very close to launching the new website for onlinecoursecoach.com. That should be happening here very shortly. So we'll be having some really cool things on the site, and I'll be promoting those and talking about those here in the coming weeks. So definitely come back for more episodes. And we have some really cool episodes. We have an episode about Facebook ads coming up, and how John Loomer does Facebook ads, as well as some of his courses. And we have somebody, a world-famous person in Hollywood that has done movies like Jurassic Park, the Terminator movies, as well as many, many other movies and TV shows. We're going to have somebody very famous on the show to talk about not just the movie industry that they've been involved in, but their online courses as well. It's going to be a blast. I'm very excited to put that one out. So that'll be coming out in the near future. Well, that does it for today. Again, thank you so much for listening to the Online Course Coach podcast. Thanks for the interactions, the emails, the tweets. It's always fun just to hear what you're developing, what courses you're trying to improve or build, and even how I can help you with your questions or resources. So keep those questions coming in. Shoot me an email at jeff@onlinecoursecoach.com. jeff@coursecoach.com, or on Twitter, Jeff_Long, and I'd be happy to help. And then lastly, if you want to leave a rating and review, which would be an honor for me to get that, you can go to onlinecoursecoach.com/reviews and leave a review of the podcast. That helps other people find it, helps other people listen to the show as well. All right, that's all for now. Keep coming back to the show, where it is my goal to help you to teach many to impact millions.